August 27, 1587, 115 people were left behind on Roanoke Island. Today, after a full 3 years, their governor, John White, is finally returning to meet them again. August 18, 1590, after battling violent sea storms and a brutal journey, Governor White finally reaches Roanoke Island. But the moment he steps ashore, he notices something chilling. The entire island is deserted. Every colonist has vanished. There are no signs of war, no bodies, nothing, except a single word carved into a tree: CROATOAN. Before White could search any further, the ship was forced to sail back to England, leaving behind one of the greatest mysteries in American history. What really happened to the Roanoke colonists? The Lost Colony of Roanoke. One of American history's biggest mysteries and one of the most overhyped stories ever told. But even today, people still wonder, was it ever truly a mystery at all? Did the colonists really disappear? Or did they simply go somewhere else? And the biggest question, why do we believe it was a mystery? Let's try to solve it from a new point of view. By the late 16th century, both England and Spain were dreaming of ruling the world. Spain had already established its colonies across South America, but England was now eager to join this race for global dominance. Queen Elizabeth I envisioned a new world, a place where the English could build the foundation of their own empire. To turn this vision into reality, she turned to a man she deeply trusted, a respected soldier and explorer, Sir Walter Raleigh. Raleigh wasn't just any ordinary soldier. He was sharp, ambitious, and carried a bold, commanding presence. Perhaps that's why Queen Elizabeth favored him and entrusted him with a mission that could help strengthen the future of the British Empire. In 1584, 2 ships sailed across the Atlantic in search of the perfect location to establish the first permanent English colony in America. By mid-July, they reached a chain of islands known as Roanoke. The English quickly built friendly relations with the Native Americans living there, and soon they were invited into their village on the island. After a month of surveying and exploration, the expedition returned to their ships and set sail for England. By late September, the team was back in England, and preparations for a full colony began immediately. In April 1585, a fleet of 7 ships left England carrying nearly 600 people, along with enough supplies to sustain the colony for almost a year. But as June drew to a close, the fleet reached the Outer Banks, and disaster struck. Navigating the waters around the Outer Banks can be incredibly dangerous, as the countless shipwrecks in the area testify. When the flagship attempted to pass through one of the shallow inlets, it ran aground and was nearly destroyed, and because the flagship carried most of the colony's supplies, much of it was now ruined by seawater. After this difficult and exhausting journey, they finally made it to Roanoke Island. The colonists quickly built their homes and settled in, but soon their food supplies ran out, forcing them to rely heavily on the generosity of the native inhabitants. The problem was, the native people had only limited resources themselves and struggled to meet the colonists' increasing demands. This growing dependence quickly created tension between the two groups. Food shortages, sickness, and harsh weather made the situation even worse. Finally, in 1586, when England's Admiral Sir Francis Drake passed by the region, he took the struggling settlers back to England, and just like that, Roanoke's first dream collapsed. But Raleigh didn't give up. He launched a second expedition, this time appointing John White as its leader and the new governor of the colony. In 1587, the expedition set sail with about 115 people on board, including 17 women and 9 children. Among them were White's pregnant daughter, Eleanor Dare, and her husband, Ananias Dare. Raleigh had ordered that the new colony be established in the Chesapeake Bay region, a place known for its fertile soil and fresh water. But when the ships reached Roanoke, the captain, Des, refused to go any farther, claiming it was too dangerous, though in truth he simply wanted to return to England quickly. So he left the settlers on Roanoke Island, the same location abandoned by the first colony. The new settlers rebuilt the old fort and houses. They planted crops, caught fish, and reached out to the native tribes in the surrounding area. At first, everything seemed manageable, but soon food shortages began. Because of old conflicts, the nearby tribes refused to help this time. Many settlers started falling sick. On August 18, 1587, John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, gave birth to a baby girl, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America. She became a symbol of hope for the struggling colony. But that hope didn't last long. Conditions were rapidly deteriorating. Supplies were running out, the tribes had turned hostile, and storms were growing stronger. The settlers urged John White to return to England and ask Raleigh for help. White promised he would come back as soon as possible, but when he reached England, he found the nation in chaos. A full-scale war had broken out between England and Spain. Every available ship was seized for national defense. White could do nothing but wait. He waited for 3 long years. Finally, in 1590, John White was able to return to Roanoke, but what he found became one of the most terrifying mysteries in American history. The entire colony had vanished. No bodies, no signs of struggle, nothing, except one word carved into a wooden post: CROATOAN. And now the question arises, where did they all go? Over the past 400 years, countless theories have emerged. Let's take a closer look at some of them. At that time, England and Spain were fierce enemies. Spain had already planted colonies across the southern reaches of the Americas, and the Spanish government feared that if England established a foothold in the New World, their empire would be threatened. Many historians have suggested that Spanish ships might have attacked Roanoke, burned the colony, and destroyed the evidence. The problem is, Spanish records show no mention of such an attack. John White himself left no record of battles or bodies. If a violent massacre had occurred, you'd expect some physical proof, and there isn't any. So while the Spanish attack theory is possible, the evidence for it is weak. Scientists have studied tree rings from the Roanoke area. Those rings indicate a severe drought between 1587 and 1589. That means crops would have failed, fresh water would have been scarce, and living conditions would have deteriorated dramatically. It's possible the colonists moved inland, perhaps toward a river or wooded area, hoping to find food, but lack of navigation skills, disease, and conflict could have slowly wiped them out. Then again, the island wasn't completely lacking in game, so it's hard to say they would have faced immediate, total starvation. One major theory is simply that the colonists left Roanoke. The first idea along these lines is that they tried to reach the Chesapeake Bay, but the bay is roughly 75 miles away, a trip that requires open water navigation and larger vessels. The Roanoke settlers probably lacked the ships, tools, and seafaring skills for such a journey. Archaeologists have not found convincing sites tied to the colony in the Chesapeake region, and no artifacts there clearly indicate the Roanoke group settled permanently. A second possibility is that they moved toward Albemarle Sound. That makes sense because John White had reportedly told the colonists that if they had to move, they should head there. While English artifacts have been found in that area, those objects can generally be explained as trade items exchanged between Europeans and native groups, not as proof of a permanent English settlement. No clear evidence, graves, hearths, shelters, has been found that would confirm a Roanoke community living there, so this theory also remains unproven. There are other variants of these "they left" theories, but one piece of evidence at Roanoke we haven't fully discussed is a single carved word. That word has been dramatized into something eerie and mysterious, but CROATOAN wasn't a magical code. It was the name of a tribe and a place. The CROATOAN people, what we now call the Hatteras tribe, lived roughly 50 miles from Roanoke. Many historians think the colonists may have gone to live with the CROATOAN tribe to escape hunger and danger. John White wrote that he had instructed the settlers, if they moved, carve the name of the place on a tree or post. If they left under duress, carve the place name and add a cross beneath it. When White saw CROATOAN carved on a post, with no cross beneath it, the simplest reading was that they had relocated there voluntarily and were safe. White intended to search for them, but severe storms prevented his ship from sailing to CROATOAN Island. So why does Roanoke remain a mystery? Because the story has been wrapped in myth and dramatic retelling, but when you strip away the sensationalism, the pieces point to plausible, if unproven, explanations. Now let's weigh the evidence and see which explanations hold up best. Imagine you're watching a movie. Two nations are locked in a brutal war, each dreaming of ruling the world. Your rival has already begun building colonies. Your queen envisions her own dream, a new world, a future English empire. She forms an expedition, and you, along with more than 100 others, are chosen. You're dropped off on a distant shoreline to begin a completely new life. A month passes, and soon you begin to feel the pressure of dwindling food and supplies. Your governor decides he must return to England for help and promises to come back quickly. You watch him sail away, and now you and over 100 people are stranded miles away from home. There's nothing you can do but wait. Weeks turn into months, summer fades, a new year arrives, 7 months pass, then 8, then 9. A full year goes by, and you celebrate surviving it. But then a chilling realization hits. It has been an entire year since your governor left. You start asking each other the same questions. What happened to him? Did the Spanish attack? Did storms or pirates stop him? Did he even reach Spain? Doubt and fear begin to grow. Eventually, you stop waiting and begin focusing on survival. When you first arrived, you were alone, but over time, you build relationships with the people who already lived here, your new neighbors. Trust starts to form. Respect grows. You begin trading food and tobacco for metals and tools. They don't just share corn with you, they teach you how to grow it. You show them how to shape metal. Friendships form. Meals are shared. You celebrate each other's traditions. The bonds deepen. One day, you remember your queen's warning that these people were dangerous, that they were cruel, that they would attack your families, and you remember how terrified you were when you first arrived. But now, you know none of that was true. You remember the Queen's dream, and you decide to leave Roanoke behind. With fertile land, fresh water, and plenty of game, you choose to go to CROATOAN. You leave with your companions, your friends, your new family. Before departing, you carve a sign for John White, a message on a tree, CROATOAN. And so you walk toward a new beginning, and toward the dream your queen once imagined. But here's the part that matters. This story isn't just speculation. Recent findings make this theory stronger than ever. In May 2025, newly published research revealed that Scott Dawson, an author and president of the CROATOAN Archaeological Society, along with archaeologist and TV presenter Mark Horton, conducted excavations on CROATOAN Island. In digging through indigenous sites dating back to the late 1500s, they uncovered firearms parts, naval equipment, small cannon shot, and other items that would almost certainly have belonged to English settlers. Even more convincingly, they found fragments of hammer-scale tiny flakes created when hot iron is struck with a hammer. This is a direct byproduct of blacksmithing, was something only English settlers practiced at that time. Between 1701 and 1709, John Lawson, the surveyor of North Carolina, explored the Outer Banks. When he visited Croatoan Island, he met the native inhabitants who told him that their ancestors had been white and that they could speak from a book, meaning they could read. Lawson also noted something striking. Some of these native people had gray eyes, a feature unseen among other tribes of that era, and strongly pointing toward European ancestry. These are solid clues. So why do we still call this a mystery? Because in the 1930s, tourism campaigns in the Outer Banks began promoting Roanoke as an unsolved mystery. And ever since, that's how the story has been told and retold. If you think the lost colony truly disappeared, then maybe the story was only ever told to you half complete. If you don't want to miss forgotten truths, hidden history, and mind-bending facts, then hit subscribe right now, because the next video is going to be even more unbelievable than this one. And yes, if you still think this is a mystery, tell me why in the comments below.